Salam alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I hope you are all in the best of health and iman. Today, we're diving into a topic that might make you pause and reflect deeply. What if all your efforts, all your prayers, your charity, even your sacrifices, were turned to dust on the day of judgment? Imagine thinking you're on the path to paradise, only to find out that Allah has abandoned your deeds. What could cause such a devastating outcome? Join me as we uncover the types of people whom Allah warns He will abandon, both in this life and in the hereafter. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. It could change the way you think about your intentions forever. In the vast expanse of the universe, amidst the stars, planets, and the countless mysteries of creation, there is a profound truth that resonates deeply in the hearts of believers. Allah, the Most High, is one, and He has no need for any partners. This core belief in the oneness of Allah, Tawhid, is the very foundation of faith, the bedrock upon which a Muslim's life is built. It's not just a statement of words, but a principle that guides every thought, every action, and every intention. Allah's greatness is beyond human comprehension. He is the creator of all that exists, the sustainer of life, the one who controls time and space. Yet, despite His absolute power and glory, He remains near to those who call upon Him sincerely, closer than even their own hearts. But with this closeness comes a clear reminder. Allah does not accept any rivals or partners in worship. He does not share His divine attributes, His power, or His majesty with anyone or anything. Imagine a king who rules over a vast kingdom, filled with treasures, lands, and subjects who praise Him daily. Would such a king ever need to rely on others to secure his rule? Of course not. In a much greater sense, Allah is beyond any need or dependency. He does not require our worship, our charity, or our actions to establish His greatness. Rather, it is we who need Him, for our very existence and every breath depend on His mercy and generosity. Allah's message to humanity has been consistent throughout time. Through His prophets, from Adam to Muhammad, peace be upon them all, He sent a clear message: worship Allah alone. Yet, time and again, people have fallen into the trap of associating others with Him, whether it was worshiping idols, venerating saints beyond their rightful place, or even seeking the approval of others over the approval of the Almighty. Allah warns against this in no uncertain terms. He says in a Hadith Qudsi, a divine narration, "I am the most exalted and the self-sufficient. I do not need any partner. If anyone does an action where he associates anyone with me, I will abandon him and his deed and leave him to whom he associated with me." Let's pause here for a moment and reflect on this message. Allah is saying that if a person's heart leans towards seeking approval or praise from others instead of focusing solely on pleasing Him, He will disregard that person's deeds. The deed that could have earned countless rewards, that could have been a source of mercy and blessings, will become meaningless. It's as if Allah is saying, if you did it for them, then seek your reward from them. Imagine standing before Allah on the day of judgment, a day when every action will be weighed and every intention laid bare. On that day, each of us will long for the smallest good deed to tip the scale in our favor. But Allah warns that if even a fraction of our intention was to impress others, to gain their praise, or to show off, then that action will not have the reward we hoped for. It's as if the good deed, like a precious pearl, is cracked and loses its value because it was not done for Him alone. This concept may sound harsh, but it is a necessary wake-up call. It's a reminder to purify our intentions and to turn our hearts back to their original state of devotion to Allah alone. And truly, if we look deeper, we'll see that this warning is a mercy in disguise. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, wants us to succeed, to attain the highest levels of paradise. He wants our deeds to be pure, untainted, and worthy of the eternal reward He has prepared for His sincere servants. To understand this better, let's think about a simple analogy. Imagine giving a gift to a close friend, a present that you put thought and care into. But then, you casually mention to others how generous you were in giving that gift, seeking their admiration. Suddenly, the sincerity behind that gift is tainted, isn't it? The original intention of bringing joy to your friend is overshadowed by the desire for recognition. Similarly, when we perform acts of worship or charity, they are meant to be gifts to Allah, deeds that we offer in gratitude, in love, and in reverence to Him. But when we seek the applause of others, it's as if we've marred that precious offering. In this world, it's easy to be tempted by the approval of others. People might give us compliments for our piety, admire our charitable work, or praise our dedication. And while there's nothing wrong with encouraging one another in good deeds, the danger lies in letting those words become the reason we act. When our hearts shift from seeking Allah's pleasure to craving people's admiration, we risk losing the essence of our worship. Allah's warning is not meant to discourage us, but to elevate us. He is guiding us to a state of spiritual purity, where our actions become lighter, freer, and unburdened by the need for validation. When we worship Allah sincerely, seeking only His pleasure, our hearts find a unique peace that no worldly praise can provide. It's a feeling of knowing that the one who sees the unseen and knows the secrets of our hearts is pleased with us. And isn't that the greatest reward of all? So, let's take a moment to reflect on our own intentions. When we pray, when we give charity, or when we help others, let's ask ourselves, for whom am I doing this? Is it for Allah, or is it for the applause that might follow? It's a gentle self-check that can keep our hearts aligned with the path of sincerity. After all, Allah sees beyond the actions we perform. He looks directly at the heart behind them. And when that heart is pure, the reward is limitless. As a reminder of the essence of Tawhid, believing in the oneness of Allah, not just in theory, but in the very core of our actions, it invites us to strip away any distractions and focus solely on the one who is truly worthy of all worship. As we continue this journey, may we strive to purify our hearts and keep them fixed on Allah, the Most High, for His pleasure alone. Because in the end, that is the path that leads to true success, both in this world and in the hereafter. In a world where recognition can be as fleeting as a whisper, it's natural to crave appreciation. After all, we like to feel valued, don't we? We smile when others acknowledge our efforts, when they see our dedication, and when they offer words of praise for the things we do. But there's a deeper truth we must understand, one that transcends the fleeting nature of human admiration. It is the concept of sincerity, or ikhlas, a virtue so delicate yet so crucial that it can determine the fate of our deeds on the day of judgment. Sincerity isn't just about what we do, but why we do it. It is the hidden engine that powers every action, a silent force that gives true value to our prayers, our charity, and every good deed we perform. Without sincerity, these actions become like empty shells, appearing whole on the outside, but lacking any true substance within. And this is where the challenge lies, because while we can perfect our outward actions, it is the purity of our intentions that truly matters to Allah. Take, for example, the act of giving charity. When we give to those in need, the action itself is commendable. But if, in our hearts, there is even a whisper of wanting others to notice our generosity, to praise us for our big-heartedness, that whisper can tarnish the entire deed. It's as if a drop of ink falls into a glass of clear water, small, yet enough to change its clarity. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized this when he said that the smallest trace of showing off, even in the sincerest of deeds, can ruin them. It's a sobering reminder that sincerity is not just about what we do in public, but what we nurture in the private chambers of our hearts. And yet, sincerity doesn't mean isolating ourselves or avoiding good deeds out of fear of mixed intentions. Instead, it's about constantly renewing our purpose, reminding ourselves who we are truly trying to please. It's about finding joy in knowing that Allah sees us, even when no one else does. Imagine that, performing an act of kindness, praying in the quiet of the night, or giving a secret charity, with the only witness being the one who knows the secrets of our hearts. Isn't that a beautiful thought? It's the kind of worship that brings an inner satisfaction far greater than any applause or recognition could ever bring. One of the most humbling reminders of this is a verse from the Quran. And we will regard what they have done of deeds and make them as scattered dust. Quran 25:23. Picture this verse coming to life on the Day of Judgment. You stand before Allah, full of anticipation, waiting to see the reward for a lifetime of worship, charity, and sacrifices. The prayers you offered, the fasts you observed, the good you did, it all plays back in your mind. You feel a sense of pride, believing that your record is full of good deeds, ready to be weighed. But then, the unimaginable happens. The deeds you had counted on are rendered meaningless, scattered like dust in the wind. You realize that while you were performing those actions, your heart was sometimes swayed by the desire for others to see your piety, to appreciate your sacrifices, to acknowledge your efforts. And because of that, those deeds have lost their value in the sight of Allah. It's a thought that can shake the strongest of believers, a fear that all their efforts could be for nothing if they lose sight of sincerity. That's why the scholars and the pious predecessors always emphasized checking one's heart, making sure that their intention was for Allah alone. They would remind themselves constantly that it's not the quantity of deeds that matters, but the quality and the purity of the intention behind them. Reflecting on this verse, we are invited to examine our own hearts. Are we doing what we do purely for Allah, or is there a hidden desire for praise lurking within? It's not an easy question, but it's a necessary one. After all, sincerity is like a precious gem. It shines brightest when it is free from impurities. And this gem is what can transform even the simplest of actions into something immensely valuable in the eyes of Allah. The hadith that follows this verse is one that has left many in awe and trembling. It speaks of three individuals, each seemingly devoted to Allah, each outwardly righteous, but with a tragic flaw. These are the first three who will be thrown into the hellfire, despite their impressive acts in this world. Abu Huraira, R.A., the companion of the Prophet, would be so moved by this hadith that he would fall unconscious whenever he tried to narrate it. It is a story that holds a mirror to our intentions, forcing us to confront the reality of what lies within our hearts. The first of these three is a generous donor, someone who gave freely in the path of Allah. This person spent large sums of money building mosques, schools, and supporting the needy. To everyone around, he seemed like a saint, a person of immense generosity and kindness. But on the Day of Judgment, he will stand before Allah, who will ask him, "Why did you give all that money?" The man will reply confidently, "I did it for you, O Allah, to support your religion." But Allah, who knows what lies hidden, will respond, "You are lying. You did it so people would call you generous, and they did. Now take him to the hellfire." Imagine the shock and horror of that moment. To spend a lifetime doing good, only to find out that it was all in vain because it was not done with the right intention. This person's outward actions appeared pious, but his heart was more focused on the praise and admiration of people than on seeking Allah's pleasure. And because of that, he is sent to the hellfire, his good deeds unable to save him from the flames. The lesson here is stark. Our intentions can make or break the worth of our actions. It's not just about doing good deeds. It's about ensuring that our hearts are aligned with Allah, that our ultimate goal is to seek His pleasure above all else. When we understand this, we start to see the true value of sincerity. It's not about how much we do, but about how genuinely we do it. It's about seeking Allah's pleasure in a world that is constantly trying to lure us with praise, validation, and recognition. As we reflect on the fate of the generous donor, we are reminded to constantly purify our intentions, to remind ourselves that the approval of people is temporary, but the reward of Allah is eternal. This realization might come with a sense of unease, even fear, but it is also a powerful motivator. It encourages us to dig deeper, to ask ourselves why we do what we do, and to strive for sincerity in every moment. And as we look deeper into the next part of this story, we'll see that the generous donor is not alone. He is joined by others who, despite their outward piety, found themselves facing the same devastating realization that without sincerity, even the best of deeds are left as nothing but scattered dust. The story continues with a profound reminder of how even the most outwardly righteous individuals can fall if their intentions are not pure. After the generous donor, another figure is called forth, someone who is respected and admired by their community for their knowledge and devotion. This is a person who spent years memorizing the Quran, who could recite its verses with a beautiful voice, and who taught others about the message of Allah. People would gather around them, eager to hear their words, and they were honored with titles like Sheikh, Scholar, or Hafiz. But on the day of judgment, when this individual stands before Allah, a terrifying reality will unfold. Allah will ask them, "Why did you memorize my words? Why did you teach others the Quran?" With confidence, the person will say, "I did it for you, O Allah, to spread your message and to bring people closer to your guidance." It is a response that seems genuine, but Allah knows the truth that resides deep in the heart. Allah will reply, "You are lying. You did it so people would call you a scholar, so they would admire your knowledge and praise your dedication. And they did. Now take him to the hellfire." Imagine the shock of this moment. The very Quran that this person spent years memorizing and teaching, which should have been their path to salvation, becomes a witness against them because their true intention was to gain the admiration of others. Despite the countless hours spent in study, the lessons shared, and the respect earned, it all becomes meaningless in the eyes of Allah because their heart wasn't truly seeking His pleasure. It's a scene that strikes fear into the hearts of those who seek knowledge. It reminds us that while learning the Quran and spreading its teachings is one of the most noble pursuits, it must be done with sincerity, with a heart that desires nothing but the approval of Allah. It's a reminder, especially for parents who push their children to become hafiz, or scholars, to ensure that their motivation is not for status or comparison, but for a genuine connection with Allah. As terrifying as this image is, the story continues with an even more sobering account. The next individual brought forth on the day of judgment is someone who paid the ultimate price, someone who gave their life for the sake of Islam, a martyr, a shahid. Throughout history, we hold the shahid in the highest regard, believing them to be the bravest of believers, those who fought and died to uphold the faith and protect the community. In the eyes of the people, this person is considered a hero, someone who sacrificed everything for the sake of Allah. But when this martyr stands before Allah, the truth of their intention will come to light. Allah will ask, "Why did you fight? Why did you sacrifice your life?" The shahid will answer, "I fought for you, O Allah, so that your religion would prevail, so that justice would be established." Yet, Allah's response will be devastating. "You are lying. You did it so people would call you courageous, so they would honor you as a hero, and they did. Now, take him to the hellfire." It's almost unthinkable. A person who gave their life, who endured the hardships and pains of battle, only to discover that their sacrifice was in vain, because their heart sought the praise of people instead of the pleasure of Allah. This is perhaps the most heart-wrenching part of the story. The shahid did not even get to enjoy the admiration they sought during their life. They paid the highest price, yet their intention was not pure, and so their sacrifice becomes a source of punishment rather than reward. The story of these three individuals, the generous donor, the learned scholar, and the brave martyr, teaches us a powerful lesson about the consequences of insincerity. It shows that even those who appear to be the most pious, the most dedicated, can lose everything if their intentions are corrupted by the desire for recognition or admiration from others. Their deeds become like scattered dust, carried away by the winds of the day of judgment, leaving them with nothing to show for a lifetime of effort. This warning from Allah is a wake-up call for every believer. It urges us to look beyond the outward appearance of our actions and to focus on the state of our hearts. Because in the end, it is not just the actions themselves that Allah values, but the sincerity that fuels them. It's a reminder that sincerity is like a flame that keeps our intentions pure, guiding us through the distractions of this world, keeping our focus on the true goal, the pleasure of our Creator. For those who hear this story, the immediate response might be fear and concern. We might wonder, are my intentions pure? Am I seeking Allah's pleasure or the approval of people? And this is a valid concern because our intentions can shift so subtly, so quietly, that we might not even notice when we begin to crave the applause or recognition of others. Yet, there is also a great hope in this realization. Allah, in His infinite mercy, is giving us the chance to rectify our intentions, to renew our sincerity, and to strive for a purer connection with Him. He wants us to be mindful, to check ourselves constantly, and to aim for a heart that is dedicated to Him alone. And when we do this, even the smallest act, whether it's a prayer whispered in the dark of the night or a secret charity given without anyone knowing, becomes a source of immense reward. It's true that achieving this level of sincerity is not easy. It requires humility, self-reflection, and a constant turning back to Allah in prayer, asking Him to purify our hearts. But for those who make the effort, who strive to keep their hearts aligned with the purpose of pleasing Allah, there is a promise of immense reward. These are the ones whose deeds are like solid gold, weighed heavily on the scales of the Day of Judgment, for they performed their actions with a heart that truly sought to please the Most High. As we end this story, we are left with a choice: to follow in the footsteps of those who sought the admiration of others and lost everything, or to be among those who turn back to Allah, seeking only His approval. It's a choice that defines not just our actions, but our entire path in this world and the next. And while the road to sincerity may be challenging, it is also the path to true peace, knowing that every effort, every sacrifice, is seen and valued by the one who matters most. As we come to the end of today's discussion, let's reflect on the powerful lesson we've learned. The deeds we do, no matter how great or small, are not just about their outward appearance, but the intention behind them. Allah, the Most High, values sincerity above all. He warns us that if our hearts are tainted by the desire for praise, recognition, or admiration, those deeds become like scattered dust, lost in the wind. Whether it's the charity we give, the knowledge we share, or even the sacrifices we make, if they are not done purely for Allah's sake, they will not hold the weight we hoped for on the Day of Judgment. It's a sobering reminder that sincerity is the key to earning Allah's pleasure and reward, both in this world and the hereafter. So, my dear brothers and sisters, let's renew our intentions, strive for sincerity, and seek Allah's approval above all. May Allah guide us, purify our hearts, and accept all of our deeds. Until next time, stay sincere, stay strong, and may Allah's peace and blessings be with you all.